So, Gran Turismo 7 has new driving physics, quote unquote. So, did they actually improve anything? Well, the short answer is no. Not at all. So, they did actually improve some things, namely for controller users, gamepad users. I don't have a steering wheel, but I did notice a difference in terms of drivability. Now, a lot of cars that were already pretty stable and didn't have issues are a lot more responsive now. Some of them are a little too responsive though, and we'll get to that here in a second. So, in its entirety, Gran Turismo 7 got a big new update. We got a new track, 6 new cars, new wheels, new tires, and a new physics model. I am talking about the new physics model here in particular. So, I tested a couple of road cars. I didn't test any race cars. So, if you wanted a review on race cars, go find a different video. I tested only road cars. So, I tested road cars that I'm familiar with, that I'm not familiar with, and road cars that had been broken since the last physics update. Yeah, I know. Or road cars that I used to drive that were broken in the last physics update. So basically, it's just a big grouping of different cars. So the first thing I tested was drifting, obviously, because what I mostly do in Gran Turismo is drifting. So I tested my best drift car, the SIL80. It felt mostly the same, but was a little bit more twitchy. It was more responsive. So the SIL80 felt different, but not a lot different. Then I tested the Honda S2000, and the Honda S2000 felt easier to drift. It felt more fluid. It felt like there was more body to how the suspension felt, which was a good thing. So that gets a pass too. Also tested the 8.6, which I didn't record. It's worse, by the way. It's god awful. I also tested the S13, and the S13 last update was pretty much broken because it just felt very locked in terms of suspension, but now it feels okay. It feels like I can actually drift it. And then the last car I tested was the R31. And if any of you know, when the R31 came out, how undriftable that car was. Yeah, it was horrible. Now it's better. That's it. It's not really that great still. It's still kind of, it's still horrible. But at least it's possible now. At least, you can actually control the car. And that's still after tuning the ballast and the suspension a little bit. But, at least, like last update, it's driftable now, unlike last update. So, yeah, that's cool. Then I did some grip tests on Nürburgring. And, I started out with the S2000 I have built for grip. It felt the same, but a little bit more oversteery. Okay, so then I tested the GT86. Pretty much the same thing. It felt the same, just have more oversteer. One thing I've noticed on the gamepad for a long time, before this update, the steering sensitivity was pretty low. Like, you couldn't steer as far, it felt like. And in this update, that has changed, for sure. The steering is a lot more sensitive. You can definitely steer at steeper angles than you used to. Could have. So, yeah, that's cool. Then I tested the Ford GT, and I'm very familiar with this car. And then it started getting tail happy like it did when the game released. So that was a bad sign. Because when the game released, when Gran Turismo 7 released, the Ford GT was basically undrivable when you put power down on it. Because it would just, like, go out to the rear. Now, it's not as bad as it was at launch in this update, but it's considerably worse. Yeah. So then I also tested cars that I had known had bottoming out issues. So that consisted of the Mazda RX-7, the Daihatsu car thing. I never drive that car because last update was broken. This update's broken even worse. I don't know how they do that, but this update, the car in its stock form is even broken. It's undrivable, actually. It's that bad. And there's a couple of other cars in their stock form that are just undrivable this update, and I think that's ridiculous. But I'll have to show you that in a little bit. But anyways, yeah, I was doing more tests on Nürburgring with cars that I had known to bottom out or have suspension issues, and pretty much the RX-7 doesn't bottom out as frequent as it used to, and it's definitely not as bad, but if you still catch it on a weird angle, it will still bottom out slightly. It doesn't like send you into a wall, but it will definitely mess up your times and like make you wonder why you're even driving this car. The Daihatsu, that thing's broken. I don't even know. And then I tested out the Ford. Oh god, I forgot the name. Oh god, help me. Sierra. Ford Sierra Cosworth. Okay. So yeah, I tested out the Ford Sierra Cosworth because it had bottoming out issues. And, you know what? It still has bottoming out issues too. Not as bad. The suspension corrects itself quicker. But I would still definitely consider it broken. So, then I moved on to Eiger Nordwand. Everybody on the internet's pronouncing that wrong. Anyways, grammar aside, I went there to test out a couple of problematic vehicles. The first of which I tested was the RX-7, which you saw earlier, I'm sure, of it bottoming out there. I also tested the Porsche, the 953. Man, I'm forgetting names of cars back and forth. But get this Porsche. Okay, so yeah, I tested that. It's worse. It's god awful. Don't drive it. Like, it was barely drivable last update. Don't drive it. And then I got around to the meat and potatoes of the brokenness of this update. Yeah, I don't need to really explain what's wrong here. If you don't see what's wrong here, there's no saving here. So yeah, Gran Turismo. The fuck you doing, bud? Actually, it's worse than what it was before. And I'd argue that it's worse than what it was at launch in some cases. So yeah, physics? Definitely not better. I mean, there's some things that are, but it's just a lot more things that are broken. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me how I did. And, I'll see you in the next... Oh my god, dude, this son of a bitch. I'll see you in the next one.